The woman with my eyes. The first time Elena saw the woman, she almost dropped her coffee. It happened on an ordinary Thursday afternoon in early October. Rain had just stopped falling over the city, leaving the sidewalks silver with water and reflections. People rushed past each other beneath umbrellas while traffic lights painted red and green streaks across the wet pavement. Elena stood outside a small bookstore waiting for the signal to cross the street when she noticed her. A woman on the opposite sidewalk. Maybe in her late 40s. Dark hair touched with strands of silver. Pale skin. A long gray coat wrapped tightly around her body against the cold wind. But it wasn't the coat or the hair that froze Elena in place. It was the eyes. The woman had her eyes. The exact same unusual shade, somewhere between green and amber, framed by the same dark lashes and the same small crease near the left eyebrow. For a second, Elena felt like she was staring into an older version of herself. The woman noticed her too. And stopped walking. The world around them continued moving loudly, carelessly, endlessly. But between them, something strange settled into silence. Recognition. Not logical recognition. Something deeper. Something the body understands before the mind does. The woman looked terrified. Not confused. Not curious. Terrified. Then the traffic light changed. Cars moved. People crossed between them. And by the time Elena reached the other side of the street, the woman was gone. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat on the floor of her apartment wrapped in a blanket, replaying the moment again and again in her head. Those eyes. That expression. That fear. At 28 years old, Elena had spent most of her life believing she knew exactly who she was. She was the daughter of Daniel and Miriam Harper. She grew up in a quiet house filled with books, piano music, and Sunday morning pancakes. Her father taught literature at a university. Her mother restored antique paintings in a tiny studio that always smelled like oil paint and lavender tea. They loved her. There had never been any doubt about that. Not once. Her childhood was gentle. Safe. Warm. And maybe that was why the truth hurt so much later. Because love can be real even when it's built beside a secret. The next morning, Elena visited her parents unexpectedly. Her mother smiled immediately when she opened the door. Elena. You should have called first. I know, Elena said quietly. Something in her voice made Miriam's smile fade slightly. They sat together in the kitchen while rain tapped softly against the windows. Her father lowered his newspaper slowly as Elena stared at them both. Then she asked the question that suddenly felt impossible not to ask. Was I adopted? The silence afterward was immediate. Heavy. Her father looked down first. Her mother's face lost all color. And in that single moment, Elena understood everything before either of them spoke. The world inside her shifted. Not violently. Not loudly. More like ice cracking beneath someone standing too far from shore. Miriam covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Oh God, she whispered. Elena felt her heartbeat beginning to pound harder. It's true. Neither of them answered immediately, which somehow hurt even more. Finally, Daniel removed his glasses slowly. Yes, he said softly. One word. One tiny word capable of dividing a life into before and after. Elena stared at them in disbelief. You lied to me my entire life? No, Miriam said quickly, tears already filling her eyes. No, Elena, please don't think of it like that. How else should I think of it? Her voice cracked. The pain surprised even her. Because she loved them. She still loved them. But suddenly every memory in her life felt touched by something hidden. Miriam began crying quietly. We wanted to tell you so many times. Then why didn't you? Neither answered. And silence became answer enough. Elena stood up abruptly and walked toward the window, trying to breathe through the pressure building in her chest. Outside, leaves moved across the street in circles. Lost things carried by the wind. Who was she? Elena asked without turning around. Miriam's crying became quieter. We don't know much, Daniel admitted carefully. You were left at St. Agnes Hospital 2 days after you were born. Elena slowly turned back toward them. Left? No one spoke. The word itself already explained too much. She was very young, Miriam whispered. At least that's what we were told. Young. Scared. Desperate. Elena suddenly remembered the woman from the street again. The fear in her eyes. Her knees weakened slightly. You knew nothing else? Daniel hesitated. Then he stood and walked toward an old cabinet near the dining room. From the bottom drawer, he removed a small box Elena had never seen before. Inside was a faded hospital bracelet. A tiny knitted blanket. And a folded piece of paper yellowed with age. Miriam started crying. Harder the moment Elena unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky. Uneven. As if written by someone whose hands wouldn't stop trembling. Please forgive me. I cannot give her the life she deserves. But I already love her enough to let her go. Please tell her one day that none of this was her fault. There was no signature. Only one letter at the bottom. A. Elena read the note 3 times before tears blurred the words completely. For years, a part of her had existed somewhere without explanation. And suddenly that missing part had a heartbeat. A voice. Pain. That night, Elena walked through the city for hours. She passed crowded cafes and glowing apartment windows and strangers laughing beneath streetlights. Everyone belonged somewhere. Everyone came from someone. The thought wrapped painfully around her chest. Who had that woman been before becoming a ghost in Elena's life? Did she think about her every birthday? Did she regret it? Did she search for her in crowds the same way Elena now searched every unfamiliar face? Or had she forgotten? That last possibility hurt the most. Weeks passed. But Elena couldn't let it go. The woman's face haunted her constantly. At work. On the train. In mirrors. Sometimes she felt guilty for searching. As though loving the parents who raised her somehow meant she wasn't allowed to wonder about the woman who gave birth to her. But human hearts are complicated. There is room inside them for more than one truth. One evening, Elena returned to the same street where she first saw the stranger. Rain fell lightly again. The city smelled like wet concrete and cigarette smoke. And there she was. Standing outside the bookstore. This time, Elena didn't hesitate. She crossed the street immediately. The woman saw her coming and looked like she might run. But she didn't. They stood facing each other only a few feet apart. Up close, the resemblance felt overwhelming. The same eyes. The same mouth. Even the same nervous habit of twisting fingers together. Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper. Do you know me? The woman's eyes filled instantly with tears. Yes, she whispered back. The answer shattered something open inside Elena. For a moment neither moved. Neither breathed properly. Then the woman spoke again. My name is Adriana. Elena stared at her silently. Adriana looked terrified. Ashamed. Like someone standing at the edge of a cliff waiting to be pushed. I never wanted to leave you, she said suddenly. I was 17. My parents threw me out when they found out I was pregnant. I had nowhere to go. No money. No home. Her voice broke completely. I thought someone else could love you better than I could. Elena felt tears sliding down her face before she even realized she was crying. For years, she imagined abandonment as something cold. Cruel. Heartless. But the woman in front of her looked like someone who had been carrying grief for almost 3 decades. I searched for you once, Adriana admitted softly. Years later. But your records were sealed. Why didn't you try harder? Elena asked. The question escaped before she could stop it. Adriana closed her eyes briefly. Because eventually I convinced myself you were happier without me. That answer hurt because part of Elena understood it. The rain around them grew heavier. People hurried past without noticing the 2 women standing there with 28 years of silence between them. Finally Elena asked the question buried deepest inside her. Did you ever stop loving me? Adriana began crying openly then. The kind of crying that comes from old wounds finally touched. Never, she whispered. Not for one single day. Something inside Elena broke completely after that. Not from pain. From release. Because all her life, somewhere deep down, there had always been a quiet fear she was unwanted. Disposable. Easy to leave behind. And now she finally understood something important. Being abandoned is not always the same as being unloved. Sometimes people leave because they are drowning. Sometimes love exists even inside impossible choices. Elena stepped closer slowly. Then, after 28 years apart, she hugged her mother for the very first time. And standing there in the rain, surrounded by strangers and headlights and the endless noise of the city, she suddenly realized something extraordinary. A person can lose part of their story for years. And still find their way back to it. Even after a lifetime.